Good morning everybody, and welcome to Djuma. We are sitting here trying to hear where a buffalo seems to have been murdered earlier this morning, probably at about 4:30. We think down in the drainage line here. I've just got an update from Lex at Gallagher Camp. We're sitting just near here. We're going to drive down there quickly and have a look. Just a quick introduction for everybody. I'm sorry to be rushed. My name is James. You're on a live game drive safari. Andrew is on camera today. Andrew, say hello.
Hello, everybody.
He's still drinking his coffee. On the other vehicle, we've got Scott, and he's driving with Brian. In the control room, we have Nikki, and we have Tara. And the most important thing, of course, is you over there, and the lions, of course. Hashtag Safari Live if you want to ask us anything at all on Twitter, or questions at wildearth.tv if you want to get hold of us on the email. We're now going to drive down into this drainage line and see if we can find the sound heard by Angie, Ken, Chris, Djuma Junkies, and various others who are desperately watching and heard the sound that woke me up at 4:30 this morning. It brought me out of my slumbers with a great speed, and I leapt out of bed, and then, well, there was no cameraman to take me on drive. Anyway, here we are now, and we're going to drive down into this drainage line and see what we can see. Sorry for the rush, but it is important. I think it's right in here. And there was a lion calling. So just while we drive, we heard a buffalo bellowing bleh, bleh, for about half an hour. And then after that, there was a lion calling. One single male lion roared. And then it went silent at about 5 o'clock. And we heard nothing. Somewhere around here. See, my real fear is that it's up here.
Welcome on board, everyone, and it's very good to have you with us. Apologies for rushing you away from James, and I was just having a conversation with Lex on the radio, so I'm just going to acknowledge it quickly. Copy that, thanks Lex. And we've got some really exciting news, as I'm sure James told you, and Lex is interested to get involved in the search for the lion that were in all likelihood responsible for catching a buffalo last night. At the moment, we're a little bit further away, and by we, it's Brian on camera with myself today. And for those of you who haven't met me before, my name is Scott. And we've just taken a loop around to access Mvubu Road from further north and see if these lion aren't anywhere nearby. I'm sure it won't take long to find them. And the tricky thing for James was that when we headed out a little bit earlier, it was still dark, so very difficult to see tracks. I slept straight through the whole commotion. I'm a very deep sleeper, so I was very happy to hear James's update first thing in the morning. He was raring to get out and try and find them, and I'm sure it's just a matter of time before we find out exactly what's happened. Thereafter, very good prospects, as I'm sure James has told you. Quarantine young male leopard could still be on a duiker kill, and I'm very, very interested to go and try and find young Sandile and he's another young male leopard who's been left alone now for over a week. I think today's day 8 that he has not seen his mother. Interestingly enough, he also hasn't been anywhere near water that we've seen in that long period of time. And 8 days without drinking is something quite interesting, I found. I think he would have been making, or we know for a fact that he would have made some small kills to be able to sustain himself. And maybe he's acquiring all the moisture he needs from those kills. But I'm hoping to go back into that area a little bit later, and maybe we'll find some tracks of his mother returning, finally. I did have tracks of hers yesterday morning, in all likelihood her heading in towards that general area, but nothing confirmed yet that they have actually reunited. Now, back to the buffalo distress calls that we're busy following up on now. I guess the deceptive thing at this time of the year is that because the vegetation is very dry and non-existent, sound travels very, very far and very, very clearly. Whereas in the summer months, there's more of a absorbing effect of sounds by the vegetation, and therefore you can't hear as clearly. And maybe that's what's thrown everyone off a little bit. Maybe those lions were a little bit further away than everyone thinks. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are interested to know which pride of lions could it be that we're looking for. And I know Derek's asked whether it's the Birmingham Coalition probably, and it certainly could be. I'm guessing either them or the Nkahuma pride. But with all the shifts in lion dynamics over the last few weeks, who knows, we could be surprised by another pride of lion. As the Nkahuma pride were quite far north of us yesterday, and it is going to be very interesting to see who it is. Thanks very much to all of you who did send through updates mentioning that it was not just one lion that it sounded like, but several lions calling. Sadly, I didn't hear anything, so I can't comment on who I think it could be just yet. Even if I did hear the roaring, you've got to be very in tune with the lions in order to know which lion may be roaring. I personally find it almost impossible to differentiate between the roars of a male and a female, but some guys are really good at it. Okay, now here's the first lion tracks of the morning, and I've just seen a male's track so far. I'm just going to try and position the vehicle so that you can hopefully also see some of the tracks, but in this dull light it's going to be very, very tricky. I don't think we're going to get anything. Brian's got one there. There we go. Not very clear, and that's because it's still overcast, or there's still no sunlight, rather, not overcast. And that track there does look like one belonging to a male lion. And now we need to just fine-tune where exactly it's headed to. What I'm probably going to do is continue, even though that track's heading in the opposite direction to us, I'm just going to continue down onto Mvubu Road. The lions could have been zigzagging before they caught the buffalo, and it's going to be useful for us to stick to the roads. But I'm going to send you back to James, and we'll catch up a little bit later. I'll just be able to that way focus on trying to work out what's going on with these tracks.
Here are the tracks, lions. Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm just quickly going to excuse myself on the radio. I've just found some male lion tracks right here. Legs, come in. Okay, they're over here. This is very exciting. We just found them. Next, I've got you visual. Come in. There they are. 5 Birmingham males on a buffalo. Look at that. There's no doubt who those fellows are. Look at that. My goodness. Shame. Buffalo is dead. My goodness, look at that. Ah. So everybody, this is what I heard at 4:30 this morning, and what so many of you heard at 4:30 this morning. This hapless old buffalo has given his last sacrifice to the wilderness. And this is my first meeting with the magnificent 5 Birmingham male lions. Gee whiz. Okay, I'm just going to reverse a little bit here and see if we can't get a bit closer in. Now what's interesting to me today is that only one of them called. The view is not excellent from where we are. I'm just going to stick my nose in here and we can't get a better look. I'm going to go in there. Is that any good to you? Guys, I think this is that buffalo that was killed, that very injured fellow who was hanging around. These lions would have immediately figured out that he was weakened. About, I think probably about 300 or 400 meters from the camera, where you all heard this distressing sound of a buffalo being killed. And so Velma in Michigan, about 400 meters away from the camera. Wow. Now, everybody, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to call Scott in. He's right nearby because I don't want to miss out on quarantine who we saw yesterday. So just excuse me 1 second. Scott is like about 100 meters away. Scott, come in. Scott, come in. Scott Dyson, come in. Scott has a flat tire, that's why he stopped so close by. What we'll do is we'll call him in to watch this kill, and we'll go and try and find Quarantine again. Quarantine, for those who don't know, is a young male leopard, but I'm the only one who knows where he is at the moment, so because he was on a kill yesterday, so there's so much action around here, it's difficult to know where to look. But we'll stay with these magnificent lions until Scott's there. There's rather a grim sight of the stomach contents being torn out of this poor old boy. But he really was in a bad way, and you can still see it from the sort of you can see from his forequarters, if you look at the forequarters of the buffalo, he's really not in a good way. You can see the muscle definition has almost completely disappeared. I tell you what, despite the fact that he was being attacked by these 5 huge male lions, this buffalo took at least 40 minutes to die. Good morning. Some lions over here.
Really? You were wondering what they were. They were on our back porch last night.
So in case you didn't hear me there, I think you'll find that this buffalo took at least half an hour to die, even though he was being attacked by these 5 huge male lions. You can see they're not quite at full adulthood yet. Their manes are still quite scraggly, but they're an intimidating group. And a quick question from Tammy, just to give you an idea of the location. They're on a road called Mvubu Road, which is just in front of Galago Camp. There are only 4 of these lions here, you know. I don't know where the other one is. Oof, they've just managed to break open a particularly ripe-smelling piece of the gut. Now, for those of you who perhaps don't know, the smell of the inside of one of these herbivores is fairly unpleasant, but no deterrent to a lion. And you just get on, can you just zoom in there? You see that? Did you see what that lion did? He squeezed out with his tongue and with his teeth, he squeezed the bolus out of the intestine and then swallowed the intestine. Quite astonishingly skillful. And Sherry in Los Angeles, this is indeed the buffalo that Scott was with the other day. I'm sure it's precisely what it was. Now the question is, where's the 5th one? There are 5 of these young males in this coalition. So where on earth the 5th one is another question entirely. And I heard 1 lion calling this morning.
Yeah, you know, I don't think there's one dominant over the others, so I think
I know that it's a little difficult for you to see on the screen there, but there are 4. There are 3 in that little clump feeding, And there's the fourth one there that's just sat up on the right-hand side of your screen. I don't know if you can hear that. So I think these fellows will be around for a little while now. So I was just getting a little bit into what this area smells like now, and Mimi in Los Angeles, welcome to the morning game drive. Lovely to have you along, and you want me to describe the smell to you. Well, there is the ubiquitous and very nice smell of the sort of slightly moist dry grass that's been dewed upon, the winter dust and the dry leaves, and then that is now infused with the not so subtle scent of the inner workings of a buffalo's stomach. Now that is fairly unpleasant. I'm not sure if you were ever hapless enough to have to dissect an animal in the laboratory, but if you have, that's basically what it smells like. It's a fairly ripe smell, which will get infinitely worse as the stomach is exposed to the beating African sun. But at the moment it's not too bad. I'm sure where that lion's nose is now right within the abdominal cavity, I think the smell is probably substantially worse from where I'm sitting now. But lions don't seem to mind the smell or the taste. I mean, I can't imagine putting raw intestines through my own mouth, but these lions don't have the same. Although they've got extremely sensitive noses, they don't associate that kind of smell with any kind of unpleasantness. And one of them seems to have got its tail caught in an Acacia gerardii tree. So what they would have eaten first, of course, are those inner organs. Easy to get at. The liver, the kidneys, the lungs, definitely, the heart. And then they'll get to the more difficult stuff, the sort of meaty stuff around the bones. Now this is interesting because we often think of carnivores as entirely big protein eaters. It's not necessarily true. They do a lot. They need as much fat as they can get because fat is in such short supply out here. So they'll eat all the fatty organs first. That's also a function of the fact that they're easier to get at.
It looks like the guy is cleaning up himself.
Yes.
His face is a little bloody.
Right. But you know what quite often happens is one of the lions will be the one that is actually killing it. And they can kill it two ways. One common way is to spray it on the muzzle.
A very interesting question from Lindsay. Lindsay, you say, why isn't the fourth buffalo feeding on the lion? Lindsay, I think you'll find because he actually looks a little bit smaller to me, A, and B, I think he's probably eaten quite a lot already. He might not be smaller, I'm just surmising from the size of his mane. Just excuse me 1 second, I want to see if Scott is back up and running. Scott Dyson, come in.
The guy lying on the right is just exhausted from having actually made the kill.
I think what we'll do is let Scott go off to quarantine because he's with Brian, who was on camera yesterday, so they should be able to find him.
So he'll be tired, so I'm sure that's most likely the one.
as maybe you heard Lex saying there, perhaps the one off to the side is a bit more tired than the others because he was more involved in the kill. Remember, the effort taken to kill an animal like this is massive. And Lex is just saying that he did hear that other lion calling. Brent is also now awake and on the trail of another calling lion somewhere around here. So if we've gone from a totally lion-free zone for 7 days to 4 of these magnificent males and another unknown lion calling. That one on the ground is looking quite interestedly towards the north. So you can see there is the odd sound of growling, and PK and Jennifer, you're wondering why they're not fighting over the kill. I think you'll find that there are 2 reasons for that. One is that the kill is very large, and 2 is that they have been feeding for half an hour already, and I'm sure that there would have been some aggression at the beginning of the feeding. But they've already been feeding for some time. I think they've already cleaned out much of the abdominal cavity. There are actually only 2 of them eating right now. Scott, come in, Scott. Scott, do you want to carry on down towards quarantine until Brian will guide you in there?
Yeah, exactly, James. Just fixing the tyre for the fuel side, things are too disturbed.
No problem at all. What's so nice about lions? Andrew, get in there. Get in there. That lion was just relieving himself. Andrew, you never miss that stuff. Relieving himself onto his brother's nose. Tremendously genteel of the lions of Birmingham. So we'll look at that. Quite interesting as we watch these 4 males with no females on an old buffalo. And Gwen, you're wondering why it is that it took these 4 strapping young fellows half an hour to kill this buffalo, given how old and infirm he is. Well, despite his appearance as an emaciated, old and slightly infirm buffalo, he's still pretty heavy, probably around 600 kilos, which is about the combined mass of these 4 lions. And he's also very tremendously strong, and so despite appearances, he would still have been very difficult to kill. It's certainly casting no aspersion on the hunting skills of these male lions. So Halal Bonner, when you say maybe they need a good huntress to help them go for the throat, no, that's not the case. These 4 males are extremely efficient hunters. They have to be. They would never have survived to this age if they hadn't been. They can hunt really well. It's just a testament to the incredible strength of this buffalo, and of course that survival instinct. They look like they're on their last legs until when actually faced with a moment of death, then they tend to rally and they will give absolutely everything in order to survive. I've never seen any animal just surrender out here.
And it's not a sound from the lion.
Susie in California, this is not an easy question to answer. You were talking about how maybe, or how what was the final death blow? Well, first of all, Susie, it wouldn't have been a blow. It wouldn't have been a hit so much as a particular piece of the buffalo that was either removed or strangled. So one of them would definitely have gone for the nose and throat, and that may well have eventually suffocated the buffalo. The other slightly more grim thing is that what they do is, as soon as the buffalo goes down, they will start tearing at the abdomen. So they may have just pulled out the organs, and that would have eventually killed the buffalo. So 2 ways, and with 4 big lions like this, they would have been all over him. One on the back, one probably pulling at the stomach, the other on the throat and the nose, and who knows what the other one was doing.
Morning, Greg.
It's the Birmingham boys.
But where the other one is,
Bar 1 is 4 here. Okay, that's interesting. Are they big males?
now just please keep an eye out on the Djuma dam cam. The other male has wandered off, and I don't know if he's lying in the bush or perhaps he's going to drink from the cesspit that is now Djuma waterhole. But keep an eye on the waterhole and see what happens there. There's one on the right-hand side. Also keep looking up and looking up towards the north, so I don't know about that. And just to keep you posted, I'm just hearing on the radio there are another 3 male lions to the south of us on Hoffman's. So what they are, who they are, or what on earth they're doing, who knows. Lions in a state of flux. It's tremendously exciting to be around here now. And just while we're discussing the different lions that are around the place, there was a young male and 2 females at Buffelshoek yesterday, and we don't really know who they are. Do you have any idea who they were? The lions at Buffelshoek?
No,
Not.
we're not sure.
Yeah.
The numbers of the lions seem to indicate Talamite,
Okay.
but they were very
Skittish.
skittish of the vehicles, and Jackson and Andrew, they all think they're not the same
Okay.
size males.
Okay. 1 male, 2 females.
3 females.
Okay.
3 males, sorry, 3 males.
Okay.
And 3 lionesses.
Oh. Wow. So I don't know if you heard that, but Lex says that they were on Buffelshoek yesterday, and Mavis, thanks for your question. 3 males, young males, and 3 females on Buffelshoek, but don't know who they were. Texan and Andrew, who were also there, have never seen them before, and they were skittish around the vehicles. Now that is purely indicative of the fact that they haven't spent much time around cars. You can see these Birmingham males are not vaguely affected by our presence. So what you'll find probably is that they've come in from the Kruger, a nomadic pride without a territory, which is very interesting indeed. So there's a huge amount going on here.
right inside. Eh? Be nice and warm in here.
So just to recap, if you've just joined us, if you perhaps just come through to your computer with a cup of coffee or a tea or whatever your evening snifter might be, your nightcap, these 4 male lions killed this buffalo about an hour ago. We heard the death throes as the poor old boy finally made his ultimate sacrifice to the wilderness. And these are the 4 Birmingham boys. We don't know where the 5th one is. You can only see 3 on the screen at the moment. Well, actually, you can only see a buffalo's head at the moment, but the other one seems to have headed off towards the water. Now, this buffalo was on his own, but for some time he was with quite a few other buffalo bulls. And Ellen in Arkansas, welcome to us. I hope it's not too late where you are. I think it is quite late though where you are. You want to know, is it possible that this lion, the buffalo went off on his own in order to sort of not slow down the other bulls? No, Ellen, I don't think that's the case. I think what happens is that he became too injured to carry on with the others, and I don't think that it was any sort of conscious choice that he should stay away from the other bulls. I think that he became too old and decrepit to keep up with them. There are lots of buffalo bulls around Djuma, and they tend to move from waterhole to waterhole. They spend quite a lot of time at Buffelshoek Dam, at Treehouse Dam. We've certainly seen agglomerations of up to 30 of them. So quite a few buffalo bulls, but this old fellow seemed to have lost function in his shoulders, and he really struggled to stand up, and he also seemed to have had a gammy back leg, and so I don't think that it was a function of him not wanting to affect the rest of the herd. It was simply a function of the fact that he couldn't keep up anymore, and that is indeed, like you would guess, the reason that he was taken out. There you can hear, I think there's some other animals alarming at the lion that's probably heading towards the water for a drink. Keep an eye on the Djuma Dam cam. It might be another predator, of course, that's making an alarm call. That's where Lex is going to go and check. We'll stay with the lions. Now, what's interesting here is that there is alarm calling, sounds like Nyala, off to the east of us. And the lions are now following, or 2 of them followed up on that alarm call. I don't know that it isn't one of the lions itself that's causing the alarm calling. Could you kindly warn me? So, please sorry, but you were not supposed to see me doing acrobatic maneuvers here. Andrew is tossing me under the bus, as it were. I'm just trying to keep a handle on what's going on. There are lions here, there are lions there, there are cars there. Andrew, that's the last time I make you coffee. Definitely some kudu alarm calling there. This is very interesting. So you can see he's looking where his brothers have gone. So we'll just wait here for a little while. 2 of the vehicles have gone off to check. Look, Andrew, you can... There he is there. Andrew, look at the lion. Lynn in Michigan, you want to know if you think, I think there were 2 buffaloes killed there, straight through this bush there, moving there. He's following up something there. Lynn, I don't think there were 2 buffaloes killed at all. I think that's highly unlikely. I know that the other male isn't here, but I think that for one male to take down another buffalo, I think would be almost impossible on his own. So I don't think that that's what's happened. And that lion's just gone to sleep there in the bush. It's also difficult to figure out exactly what's going on. Nope, he's up again. Can you see him there, Andrew?
From this angle, from where the camera's angle, I can't.
Okay, let me just, I'm going to sneak slightly forward so that you've got him. There he is. He's up and he's looking. I don't think that there's a huge amount going on there, to be honest. They seem to be sleeping. Now, Andrew, I'm not going to duck down acrobatically, I'm just going to smile at the camera. Oh, there we go. So much action. I feel quite breathless after all. There's definitely something that those other 2 have followed up on. Some kind of alarm call that was going on. Sounded like a nyala maybe. And maybe there's a leopard in there somewhere. Who knows? Maybe the lion that was calling this morning. Because I find it very odd that I only heard 1 calling and that these ones wouldn't have been calling as well. There we go. Lex has found the 5th one. So that's what that's what those nyala were alarm calling at. He's found the 5th lion. So nice question about whether or not he was perhaps injured. It would seem that he wasn't. He was off to the east there. So all 3 of them, but I don't. Right, guys, great news. Quarantine is still on site and Scott has managed to get his vehicle in there. I'm sure it was no mean feat at all. So we're going to head straight across there and have a look at that magnificent male leopard, and I'll see you in just a little while.
Welcome back, everyone, and isn't this morning turning out to be an absolute big cat frenzy? So happy that you've all been enjoying a sighting of the Birmingham Coalition. I'm so jealous though, because I haven't seen them since about February or March earlier this year, and it was at around that time that they headed further north into the Magnoleti, and we didn't see them for about 4 or 5 months, and I personally haven't seen them. But I also haven't seen this leopard for quite some time, so very happy to see Quarantine. I've spent many hours with him and his brother, and over the first few months of our filming, we spent more time with this leopard and his brother than any others. He's kind of been replaced by Sindile at the moment, and it's now Sindile that we are spending a lot of time with because these young males have moved off, and Quarantine sounds like he's spending a lot more time to the south of us as far as a property called Londolozi, and that's normal for young male leopards. They will leave their natal home range, which is usually their mother's territory, and then start expanding and learning with them only themselves as their teachers, no longer their mothers teaching them what to do. And that's busy what he's doing. It looks like he's doing a very good job though. And for those of you who weren't on yesterday's sunset safari, I should update you that James was spending time with Quarantine yesterday evening, and it was while he was with the Quarantine male that they were trying to relocate him. He had moved into some thick bush, and then him and Brian heard the squeal of a duiker that had been killed. And even from here we can actually show you that duiker. It's in a jackalberry tree up ahead of us, and that's why we knew to come back into this area this morning. Doesn't look like he's fed on very much at all. And I also did see him briefly yesterday just before James found him. I raced into the area. It was monkeys that helped Brian and James get into the area of this male leopard. And like I said, maybe he was already fairly full-bellied before he made the kill. Interestingly enough, as we arrived here this morning, there was an Inyala, probably about 5 or 6 meters away from Quarantine, and it was walking straight down towards it. He was hiding in this little dip, and even though he has this kill, there's a strong chance that he would have tried to catch that Inyala if it had taken 1 or 2 more steps. But that also helped reassure that he was still here, because we heard those barks, and it's very much like a dog bark, probably similar to the kudu alarm calls that you may have heard whilst with James earlier. I know there was a bit of confusion as to what exactly was going on.
This is just unbelievable, everybody. I think they're going to meet up on the road here. Ah, wasn't that incredible? Sorry to pull you away from the leopard, but that is just the most quintessential sound you'll ever hear of Africa. How wonderful is that? Eh, want the John say Londoloz. Yeah, I need that woman, I know it. everybody. We're just going to see if we can't get the try not to destroy Andrew's car on the way out. I don't mean Andrew the cameraman. He can take the hit, especially after throwing me out under the bus earlier. Yeah, they're going to meet up here. Look at this. This is wonderful. Oh, this is magic. It's absolute magic. I think that's the fifth one. Oh, look at that. Isn't this spectacular? We are so lucky to experience this. Marking territory now. They're under no illusions as to who's in charge now. They're not worried about those Matimba males in the slightest. They are taking over this territory. You can see the injury next to the left eye of the one closest to us, and that is going to become diagnostic. It will become distinctive of him the more we see him. May also have a slight limp, but I don't think it's anything serious. Now I find it quite interesting that the one that wasn't feeding is the one that didn't come away. It's the one that has the least blood on him. A nice question as we look at them. They've got sort of scraggly manes, like sort of teenagers with a bit of a wispy beard. And we'll just get a look at the one over there. And that lion, so have a look at the mane there. And Lisa, you'd like to know how old they are. Well, the mane's the best way to tell at this stage. These lions are roughly 4, as far as I understand it. 4 years old, maybe. I've heard people say they're 5. They're not 5-year-old yet. So they're probably 4.5 years old, and not quite 5 yet. You can see they've still got the distinctive mohawk on the top of the head, and that will disappear. When they're about 5, they will have a full mane, and then when they're 6, they'll reach, between 6 and 8, they'll reach ultimate mass. So if they've managed to take a territory at this stage of their lives, they're in for a very long haul of territorial lionhood, which is not common. 2 years is the average, even for a coalition like this. They've still got quite young faces. Still one hasn't come across to the kill though, which I find very interesting indeed. I don't know why. Now you can see the mane is not quite that impressive yet. A bit bigger than juniors, so for those of you who've been watching for regularly, the Nkuhuma Pride, who until now has provided the bulk of our lion viewing, have a young male with them, and he's about 3.5 now, I think, or probably just under 3.5, and his mane is just slightly less impressive than these chaps, and it doesn't actually look very different from these guys. And that roaring that we were hearing is simply territorial calling. Then we saw we saw the one male marking territory. We've seen another one doing it this morning as well. So Kevin, that's exactly what that roaring was about. It's a question of making sure that everybody understands who's in charge. And one of them was doing it earlier today, not any of the others. And I found that very interesting. I heard them before we came out. One called and the rest didn't. That's the first time I've heard them all calling. Andrew, shall we reverse back to the kill, I think, if you don't mind? I don't want to put you out, especially as you seem to be filming me in very uncompromising positions today. Very unflattering, I mean, in compromised positions. Just signalling to Texon. Andrew, just watch your head here. This tree is threatening to. That might be the most irritating tree in the bush. Right, here we are back at the kill, and the one that wasn't feeding is now feeding here. The others are off to the front, just lying under the bushes. I think you'll find that they will go almost immobile fairly soon, and then they won't do a hell of a lot else. Now, I think it's quite interesting that this one here has been, he was sort of standoffish to start with at the kill, no blood on his face. Now that was either because he was intimidated from trying to feed, or because he did the bulk of the killing, and so he was too tired to eat too much. And I'm going to theorize about what I think just now. Marilyn, your question is an excellent one about why it is that they eat when they're still full. You can see that their stomachs are full, and how is it that they keep on feeding? Marilyn, they can eat up to 25% of their body mass just about in one sitting, and that's because they need to avoid competition. All of the cats, and in fact all of the carnivores, are able to eat an astonishing amount before they have to stop, and that's because so often their kills get stolen from them, and so what they need to do is pack in as much as possible, and so that if they have to leave or have to move away, then that's what they do. Now what's interesting here, Andrew, do you see how the mane is darker? You see that? Now that darkness, everybody, is indicative of a testosterone content that is higher perhaps than the others, and I think it's quite instructive that this lion was away and perhaps more tired than the others after the kill. They're calling again. Just shh, let's just listen to this. Listen. Oh. Oh, that's just wonderful. Some territorial calling. Isn't that just wonderful? Isn't that lovely? I'm just going to quickly answer Marilyn's question, then I'm going to have to excuse myself just to try and deal with a few things on the radio. Marilyn, do they chew? No, they don't chew. Remember, they don't have teeth that are able to chew like us. They don't have flat molars. Their molars are ridged. They're called carnassials. And if you eat meat, you don't really need to chew it too much. And what happens is that the carnassial teeth sort of shear over each other like that, and they take off just the right size of meat that they're able to then swallow. They can't chew. In as much as your dog or your cat at home can chew, they can chew, but they don't do a huge amount of chewing. I'm just going to get an update on the radio to find out who's coming and where. We're going to head back across to Scott, who's sitting with quarantine, and I will stay here and keep you posted if anything develops. See you just now.
Well, haven't you guys got lucky with hearing those lions calling? And you got just the end of their first call, but it sounds like the whole second time you got to see, and it's one of my favorite things to show and share with people on safari. Big male lions roaring. You came back at a good time, because you've probably seen Quarantine do more than he's done since you left, and that is ever so slightly repositioned, and doesn't he look comfortable there? Can't work out exactly what he wants to do just yet, but I think that looks like the position he is going to assume for at least the next short while. I'm hoping he will head up to feed, but there's no guarantees that he will do that. Interestingly, when the lions were calling, he didn't even prick his ears in their direction. We're not far away from those lions, but couldn't hear them, possibly because my hearing's not so good. But interestingly enough, he didn't show any concern whatsoever, and we have had quite a few questions sent through asking if the shift we're experiencing in the leopards' territories, various leopards seem to be shifting territories at the moment, both male and female, and could that be attributed to the shift in the lions' territories? And it was just yesterday I was saying that I strongly feel that leopards will go about their business regardless of what's going on with the lions, and it's entirely a dispute between the leopards causing these shifts. And I guess the behavior that sadly you didn't get to see, but we certainly did get to witness now, of him not even showing any concern of those lions, will help to confirm that point. Well, Brent is out on tracking team, helping to find any other interesting sightings for us. And there's some tracks of a female leopard in the general area that Shadow moves, but I know it is kind of in the buffer area where Karula, her mother, is also seen. So with a bit of luck, they'll work out which female that is. And for those of you who may have just joined the show, this young male leopard, he's probably approaching 3 years of age now, managed to make a duiker kill last night, and it's just up in this tree ahead of us here, so we'll give you a quick zoom in on that. And his birthday's in December, his 3rd birthday, so just a couple more months. And from here it doesn't appear like he's fed on much of this duiker, and I did mention earlier that he could well have been quite full-bellied when he managed to make this kill, and therefore hasn't required to consume too much of it just yet. It'll be interesting to see whether he does anything this morning, but a couple of the things he could do is A, go back and feed some more on the Djuma, B, continue to sleep, and C, head off to the nearest water for a drink. And the closest water to us is probably at the Djuma waterhole, and I'm guessing that's where he would go if he decided for a drink. And even if it's not necessarily now during the drive, possibly between the drives he could pop up at the Djuma waterhole. But it is quite a way off from here, and what I've noticed is that unless water is close by, i.e. 500 meters or so, leopards will typically only venture further than that once the kill is finished. I just need to get on the radio quickly and let somebody know where we are. Grant, I've had your visual there. We are down in the drainage to your east. There's a large jackalberry. It's actually quite close to the road where the Djuma kill is, but very difficult to get to from there. Apologies, it's so frustrating. I would love to try and share the sighting with the other vehicles, but it'll be impossible for them to get in here because they have got much larger vehicles than we do. We've got a short wheelbase vehicle that managed to maneuver us in here. But that happens from time to time out here. Now, this leopard and its kill is probably no more than a kilometer as the crow flies from that lion kill. And we've got a question through from Rita, who was obviously watching the show earlier on in the year, and she remembered a sighting where the the Matimba Coalition managed to kill a buffalo, and around that buffalo kill, Djuma lurked around and slunk in and managed to actually steal some little portions of the kill while they were off sleeping. And it's not uncommon for young male leopards to take these chances, and it was Djuma that was the leopard that did that, not Quarantine. So she just wanted that cleared up, and I'm sure Quarantine has behaved the same way. I've seen some young male leopards taking some incredible risks, but I guess they back themselves and they know how fast they are and that they can escape up trees. If they didn't know that, they wouldn't be alive now and they would have been eliminated when they were a lot smaller cubs. Anyway, we're going to send you back to James and the Birmingham Coalition. I hope you get some good action there, and we're going to wait here for Quarantine to make his next move.
Hello everybody, welcome back. Still the same lion feeding, and the smell has just escalated to the stage that I'm now starting to feel a little bit nauseous. You need to watch the lion, he's far more interesting than me. We game drive parked behind us, fascinated by the fact that I'm on camera. They're looking at me as though I'm some sort of celebrity.
Some coverage.
Anyway, and the smell is now pretty rank. It smells like the innards of a buffalo, which is a fairly unpleasant smelling thing. And like I was saying just before you left us, I think that this lion here has an interesting story to tell. And I wonder, as we watch them progress, this coalition of 5 young males, I wonder if this chap won't turn out to be, maybe he's got a different father, a different mother, but I think that his testosterone levels are a bit higher than the others, and that's because his mane is darker. Look at the little black mohawk that he's got. The others are very blonde in comparison. starting to call again. Two of them calling, three of them, or two of them doing what lions do best, which is nothing, and the other eating frantically. Now, this is my first sighting of the Birmingham Males, and Larry, you want to know if there's a lion called Blondie with them. Well, I'm not familiar with a lion called Blondie, but all five of this coalition are around here. So if Blondie is one of the Birmingham five, absolutely he's here. But they're quite spread out. We've seen four of them feeding so far, but one of them has been lurking off in the block there to the east. And what he's doing there, I'm not really sure. I'm assuming that he would have eaten his fill to start with. He may be bigger than this fellow, and maybe that's why. But I think this lion's going to be quite interesting to watch.
Yeah, but that was all from same pride. Yes, that's what have been kicked out at the same time. Yeah, just
So you can see every time the lions pull their heads out of this carcass, you can see that they are a bloodied mess, as bits of innards, intestines, organs, meat, and what else would there be in there? Whatever else you find in a buffalo carcass covers their faces. And there's a very interesting question from Tammy and Lindsay and Sharon about how on earth they get clean. Well, chaps, they get clean just as you've surmised, from licking themselves and licking each other. They are very fastidious about getting clean after a kill, much less so than something like a leopard is, but they certainly will clean each other and lick each other free of any kind of this blood and guts. And the thing is, with a buffalo like this, Gary in California, very nice, in Huntington Beach, I think you're quite a new viewer, so welcome and thank you for your question. You're wondering where all the flies are. Well, Gary, it was only killed at 4:30 this morning, so the flies won't have picked on it yet. They will eventually, there will be flies all over this carcass. And your second question pertains to how they eat meat that is spoiled. The predators out here, everything bar the wild dog, which tends to only eat fresh meat, will be able to cope with the foulest, most rank, most rotting meat. This meat's very fresh, but the rotting meat they're able to deal with is because they have such acidic stomachs, and they're just designed to do it. You know, they've evolved in an area to scavenge off spoiling meat, and they can eat the most rotten kind of meat you can imagine, stuff that you couldn't put your nose to, let alone your mouth. They will digest readily and derive huge nutrition off. Now, the interesting thing, while we were as we were sort of coming towards the sighting today, or trying to find it in the darkness with the spotlight, we saw 2 hyenas heading off towards quarantine clearings, and that did kind of throw me off the scent a little bit. Andrew, shut up. It did kind of throw me off the scent a little bit, and I headed towards quarantine because I couldn't understand why the hyenas would be going that way. And curious one, you've asked about hyenas and where they are, would they come here? Because you heard them calling when this buffalo was being killed earlier this morning. Curious one, I don't know what the answer is. I wonder, and Andrew and I were just talking about this, if the hyenas didn't find this buffalo first and perhaps start calling to try and attract other hyenas to help them take it down. Remember, hyenas are exceptional hunters as well. They will hunt, but they do need a big group to take down a buffalo like this. And perhaps their calling then attracted these lions, and they then finished the job, and then the hyenas moved off, because for hyenas to challenge 5 young males like this, there'd have to be a clan of more than 60. So they won't come near. A little clan like the one that is resident on Djuma won't come anywhere near 5 young male, strapping young male lions like this. So, curious one, lovely question. My guess is that the hyenas found this buffalo and started calling to try and bring some others in. The lions would have responded to that noise. They came in, the hyenas would have scarpered, and then the lions finished off the job, perhaps, that the hyenas began. That's what I think happened. That's wild supposition, though. It may not be at all true, but certainly there were hyenas moving away from this kill when we arrived here, or moving away from the area. They definitely would have known that it was happened, and the only reason they would have moved away was because of the presence of these kings of the jungle, or should we say young pretenders to the throne. Just wonderful. We haven't had a lion for so long. I haven't seen a kill like this for a very long time. Andrew's giggling because I'm now performing acrobatic maneuvers to stay out of the cat. Don't show me, Andrew.
Oh, wait, there's another lion coming. Oh, just stay down. Okay, you're safe, James.
So I think you're going to find now that these lions are going to go fairly immobile for much of the rest of the day. Compared with, you know, a big fully grown adult male buffalo, there's not a huge amount of meat left on this fellow. So we've got 3 there, lying down. There are 2 off to the eastern side of this road that we're on. Now, we've heard them roaring all morning, and Kerry and Santa Ana, a very nice question. Does the fact that they're roaring, here comes another one, Andrew, does the fact that they're roaring mean that they are, that the Matimbas have given up and headed off? Very interesting, because Craig, who was just in here, said that the Matimbas were seen on Hoffman's, which is just south of us, earlier on today, or at least yesterday, and apparently this morning they were seen heading, scarpering south towards Mala Mala. So what I suspect is that they have heard these 5 calling, and they've decided discretion is the better part of valor, and they've headed off to the south, trying to avoid any conflict, because they've already had their pipes cleaned once, as it were, and I think they don't want that again.
That's then.
No. So we've got 5 male lions here. And they are now taking over a territory of the other male lions in this area, which had 3 prides in it. Now, Shamrock, who I think you're watching at work, which of course is the best thing to be doing at work. Perhaps you're in an astonishingly boring staff meeting. And somebody's rambling on in the front. What is that? It's a bird. No. Hang on a second. Andrew, did a lion go through there?
Not that I saw.
It's either a bird on the floor or a tail flicking. There's a lion in there. I don't know. Anyway, I'm very confused. There's a flicking black thing through there. It might just be a drongo jumping up and down that looks like the end of a lion's tail. Anyway, Shamrock, you want to know, how does resource availability affect the size of a lion pride? And the answer is hugely. Certainly where prey is more abundant, so the prides will be larger, and in East Africa you get probably quite substantially larger prides than you would get here, say in around those big wildebeest herds. But there is a limit to that. That's not a purely linear relationship, and certainly there is a size limit after which it becomes detrimental for the lion pride, because they just don't tend to last long when they're very big, because to feed them all becomes very difficult. And a very nice example of that, you get huge prides out here, sometimes up to 26 or 28 in those. Big pride that Brent talks about that he used to see, I think of about 30 odd around Singita Lobombo, which is in the eastern Kruger. But those prides don't last at that size for very long, because they just become very difficult to kill. But small prides are more indicative of more spread out prey. But again, Shamrock, interestingly, a lioness on her own has a greater chance of killing than 2 of them. But 3, once they're 3 together, they tend to have a higher success rate of hunting. So it's a little bit more complex than just a linear relationship. What does change almost linearly with prey availability is the territory size. So while a pride sizes do change with the resource availability, but not in a particularly linear way, the size of a pride's territory will increase almost in direct relationship with the availability of prey. So a coalition like this of 5, you will probably find will split, not to the extent that they ever become antagonistic to each other, but because of how difficult it is to maintain a territory big enough for 5 male lions. Remember, this isn't a pride. That the 5 males will dominate a number of pride territories. So the male coalition will probably split and almost kind of delegate responsibility to each other for certain sections of the territory. But then they will every so often come together, and that will only happen once they're absolutely sure that they've taken this territory, and possibly when they're a bit older than they are now. So Shamrock, I hope you've not enjoyed that answer. It's quite a complicated answer and a very lovely question. Thank you. So the average pride success rate is about 30%. That means about 3 out of 10 times a lion chases an animal, they'll catch it, bring it down and devour it. Now Maggie M, all the way from Australia, welcome. You're probably in tomorrow already, close to it. Very nice to have you on board. And you'd like to know, is it the same with a male coalition? Do they have the same sort of success rate as a pride? Maybe, I don't know for sure, but I think you'll find that they probably do have the same sort of success rate, except that a coalition of 5 males like this can afford to take much greater risks with something like a buffalo, which is dangerous to kill. And so you'll probably find with things like buffalo, they have a greater success rate than a pride does. That would be my guess. Lovely question. Thank you, Maggie. One, two, three, 4, 5. So I was just talking earlier about the difference in the manes between the one that's feeding now. He's got a bit more black in his mane than the others I've seen. I haven't seen the 5th one, I've only seen 4 of them. And Carol, a lovely question about whether they are all related or not. Are they all brothers? Carol, it's unlikely that they were all, that a lioness would have produced a litter of 5 males and managed to raise them all. So they would definitely have come from the same pride, but I suspect what you'll find is that they're cousins. They probably belong to sisters, and they would have been tossed out of the pride territory at the same time as each other. But I doubt that they're all brothers. There will be some brothers here, but you can definitely see a difference already between the manes of them all, and I think that's quite indicative that they're not all from the same litter at all. Nice question, thanks Carol. They will be related though. Although there are exceptional circumstances, well not that exceptional, but where unrelated males will join each other, these ones we know came from the same place. So the lions we see at the moment, we've got the Styx sort of coalition, well the Styx pride, different kinds of offcuts of that pride. Some seem to have broken away from the others. There's 2 in one group, and I think there are 1 in one other group, and then there are 3 in another group. And then there are 4 lionesses, or soon to be 6 adult lionesses in the Djuma pride. And in the Shimungwe pride, I'm not sure, I think there are 2 lionesses. And then the Talamati pride's got another 4 or so. And very nice question about whether or not there's a worry about the number of male coalitions, or sorry, number of males there are versus females, so the ratio of male to female. And Djuma in Ohio, very nice, that's your question. Is there a worry? Look at that. Is there a worry at all that there might be too many males? No, Djuma, I don't think at this stage there is a worry. It's pretty normal. That it will normalize itself. Certainly fewer males make it to adulthood than females. There's definitely another lion lying there. Right, Andrew, can you see the tail flicking there? I didn't see one walking off there, but maybe one of them just went and lay down over there. Anyway, Djuma, I don't think it will self-regulate. Certainly when there are too many males, they just simply won't have enough space to lie, and the territorial males will take care of them very quickly. Now, we often talk about the similarities between the different cats and the big cats and how they behave with each other and the differences. Now, obviously what happens is with the cats, with the leopards, when a young male comes of age, he'll be tossed out of the territory by his mother. Now, James would like to know, will some females come and toss these males out? No, James, absolutely not. Once these males get to this age, they decide where they're going to go. The only thing that would make these males move would be a larger coalition of older males. So nothing's going to move these fellows at all, especially not a pride of females. The females will be very nervous of them, especially we know that these 5 have already killed one of the Nkuhuma lionesses in a dispute over some buffalo. So there's definitely no chance that any lionesses are going to throw these chaps out. Just a quick recap for everybody, if you perhaps just joined us. I know Maggie is in Australia, so maybe she's just got home from work. There are a couple of you probably at work watching, and then there are of course various others who will be just about to go to bed. I'll tell you what happened. Earlier this morning at 4:30 Central African time, there was a great whaling in Great me from my slumbers, and it was being killed. No doubt about it. We knew that it was being killed. There's a Gari Dam. Not sure. He's certainly old and infirm, or he's now no longer old and infirm. He's now dead, of course. And you have correctly surmised that we're quite close to the new hyena den. It is quite close to here. And certainly there was quite a lot of hyena shouting this morning. But once these 5 males came into the area, the hyenas again chose discretion as the better part of valor and disappeared off. Doesn't that look like a nice breakfast, Andrew?
Yummy.
Bush just carries on. You know, it's so interesting to me that this buffalo has experienced the ultimate trauma, being killed by lions, and around the
1 second, everyone. We parked at a bit of an awkward angle here, and Brian's hanging off the back of the vehicle, so I'm just going to reassess my initial plan. There we go, that should be a bit better. Now, as he continues to feed on this duiker carcass, what we may see him doing is actually bringing it back down onto the ground. It can be quite awkward and difficult for them to get to the parts of the antelope that they're trying to consume. So that is something that may happen. But for now, he looks like he's repositioned it into a slightly better spot. I wonder if and how many hyena may have been alerted to this kill but been unable to steal it from him, because he did cleverly hoist it into the tree. And what I found is that quite often with hyena, they may come past a leopard kill, notice that it's not worth hanging around, and then continue. And then what they probably do is they return a little bit later and see if any scraps have fallen down. So they'll possibly keep checking in on the progress here. But once the kill is up in a tree, they will not always lie below in wait. So that is something that he may have experienced happening last night. Well, aren't we all so lucky to be sitting here after your wonderful sighting with James and the Birmingham Males feeding on a buffalo. Now we've got a leopard up in a jackalberry tree feeding on its duiker kill. And Laura in Alabama's asked a great question. She would like to know if leopards will ever jump out of trees onto their prey. And believe it or not, they do that, Laura. And it has been captured several times. Oh, look at that great view. Beautiful. Sorry, Laura. Back to you now. They certainly do jump out of trees, and it has been documented here in the Sabi Sands. I've seen some footage of leopard jumping out of marula trees onto impala. Only about 3 or 4 meters, so not a very, very high drop out of a tree. I'm not sure exactly what kind of tree it was, but my estimate is that it was anywhere between 8 to 10 meters high that this leopard fell directly down onto an impala. It's incredibly high, 8 to 10 meters, basically 4 or 5 regular sized doors stacked up on top of one another. That's how high that leopard fell down onto its prey. And at one point it was actually heading, there's a photographic sequence as well as a video sequence. The photographic sequence helps you to see that at one point he is actually directly vertical with his nose pointing down and his tail up in the air, and at the last moment he somehow managed to flare his body up kind of like a parachute and then land down on the impala, who got a huge fright, understandably. And sadly, it did not get away. It was the leopard's lucky day. You may hear another vehicle approaching. Lex has managed to maneuver his vehicle in from Vulture's Nest Road, and I'm glad that he's here to enjoy this with us now. Oh, is he going to drop it? He could very well at any point now, or like I said, he may just bring it down onto the ground to feed where he may be a bit more comfortable. With a smaller kill like this, as long as it is at the base of the tree, if he does hear anything approaching, he can very quickly get it back up there. Well, even though I've just said that, and it would be very easy for him to get the kill into this first fork of the tree. We've had a great observation through from Jennifer in Toronto, and she's pointed out that if a male lion or any lion was to get to this tree, it would quite easily be able to get into it. And you're completely correct, it's not very high at all, and a lion would with relative ease be able to get into that first fork. The thing is though, Jennifer, as soon as the leopard saw the lions coming, it may decide to abandon the kill where it is, or even try and hoist it further up into this tree, as there are a few more forks and perches within this tree where the leopard would be able to get it out of a lion's reach. It would actually be hilarious if some hyena came onto the scene, because they would be jumping up at the base of the tree trying to get into that dike, and they would get close, but I don't think close enough. But good point, Jennifer, and so thanks for sending through that observation. It would be certainly quite easy for a lion to get into this tree. And on the topics of lions and their climbing abilities, it's often going up that's not too difficult for the lions. It's coming down that they can become a little bit clumsy and even injure themselves. I've seen footage of a lioness trying to jump out of a tree, and she miscalculated it and actually broke her back and was paralyzed lying in the tree. That would be a terrible scenario to witness, but it is important to know that they can injure themselves when climbing. And Georgianne in Illinois is also picked up, or is on the same wavelength as me, and has mentioned that the diker's legs are hanging down, possibly low enough for a hyena to reach it, but if a hyena did come onto the scene, I think Quarantine would be able to make a plan in getting it a little bit higher up into one of the other forks in the tree. What I may do is try and reposition one more time, and that's so that we can give Lex the opportunity to come into the spot where we are and get a bit closer to the action. I'll just wait for him and actually just see, but in the meantime I can answer a question from Tammy in Seattle. And good to have you with us, Tammy. Tammy's asked and noticed that the Birmingham Coalition went for the organs first. They are typically the softest and easiest parts of a prey item to feed on. Yet Quarantine appears to be consuming the rump and starting at the back end of the carcass. And it does depend on the individual leopard and scenario as to what exactly they will do. But I do see that there's quite a lot of the stomach contents hanging out of the belly, and that means he has kind of disemboweled it, and he may very well have actually fed on some of the organs already. It looks like we don't need to reposition because Lex has managed to get himself into a good spot without me having to help him. But I am going to just move forward a meter or back into our original spot. There we go. But good question, Tammy. And in my history, I've noticed that it will depend on not only the individual leopard or lion that you are viewing, but also the individual's event of a different kill. They may vary their behavior from time to time. Brian, did he feed on the organs yesterday evening? So, according to Brian, Tammy, even though it may appear that he hasn't fed on the organs, he did. And as he repositions the kill now, that big bag that you can see dangling below the carcass is what looks like the rumen. So all of the grass and leaves that the duiker would have been feeding on is still in that bag. And sometimes what leopards will do is feed on the casing of that bag, but obviously the vegetable matter inside is of no interest to the leopard.
Yes. There's three here, but Grant is on the other side of the riverbed further away, so I think we can come in.
And Kevin on Twitter, you were right, that, as I say, is the stomach content. There's a little bit of fur that he's just plucked off, that you may have seen falling down. It's always funny business watching him now. He's trying to get that bit of fur off his tongue, but not very easy for him. I think it looks like he may be trying to actually chew off that bag of stomach contents, and it may plop to the ground at any stage. He really is in an awkward position here, and you can just see his tail flicking up from side to side, trying to help him keep balance. Watch closely here. He's eating the lining, and he's trying to squeeze the content within that stomach lining out before he consumes that. And I'm told you saw a bit of that happening last night, kind of like he's sucking on a piece of spaghetti. And Tammy, it looks to me like he has finished off the majority of the main organs, the heart and the lungs. So it looks like he too, just like the Birmingham Coalition, did do that. Well, this is probably not going to be very pretty to watch, so if you are a bit squeamish, I would suggest maybe coming back in a few minutes, especially if he does continue to try and consume the stomach lining. But it looks like he's started chewing on the rib cage now, and you'll probably hear his teeth crashing through those bones. Oh, there goes the stomach content. And it's often that thud that attracts any hyena who may be lying nearby. And the fact that none have arrived now will confirm to us that there isn't one hiding off in the surrounding area. So as you can see, it's not an easy job consuming this carcass, and a question has just come through from San Diego. Hello Reme, good to have you with us. Reme has asked if leopards, or if I've ever seen a leopard choking whilst feeding on a kill, and I haven't, Reme. It's an interesting question, and I'm sure it does happen from time to time, but it isn't something that I remember seeing. Maybe we will get lucky now and get to see Quarantine make a fool of himself, but I don't think it will happen from that often, and considering how often I have seen leopards feeding on kills, I haven't seen it happen even once. So I don't think it's something likely to happen. Lex, have you ever seen leopards choking on kills? Okay, so Lex, who's far more experienced than I am, has also not seen that happen, but I'm fairly certain it could well have happened somewhere along the line, as even these animals do make mistakes. I think a possible reason why no hyena are here, or potentially didn't even find Quarantine with this kill last night, is because there was so much action unfolding with the Birmingham coalition. It could have possibly diverted their attention elsewhere. And I'm not sure if James did mention, but the kill and the Birmingham coalition were incredibly close to the new hyena den site. But the hyena would be unwise to try and bully the Birmingham coalition off their kill, because I don't think that is going to be a likely scenario that they could pull off. Well, speaking of the Birmingham coalition and the hyena den, James would like to give you an update on both of those two things and his plans for the rest of the morning. So we're not going to go anywhere, and we'll see you back here shortly.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Djuma, where we have left the kill because the kill has been left by the animals that killed it, that being the Birmingham 5. And we're here with the one with the scarry eye, who I believe the Twitterverse has named Scrapper. Now, I'm not convinced about that name myself, but if that is what you choose to call him, so be it. That is what we will call him. I do know that the chaps south of us on Nkoro have referred to him as Tsotsi, and the Tsotsi is a sort of it's a South Africanism for a sort of what should we say, Andrew? A criminal. A thug. Yes, exactly, a thug. That's exactly it. So I'll let you choose what we decide to call him. The most obvious thing to call him, of course, would be Andrew?
Murderer.
No, not murderer. Scarface would be the obvious one. But I'm more than happy to go with Scrapper or Tsotsi, dependent on the Twitterverse's opinion. Now, we're sitting here with him. The other four seem to be just to the other side of the kill. This is exactly where I said I saw something flicking in the bush, and it was his tail flicking here. So we're not, the kill is just sort of over in that direction over there, and the other three, there were three of them still sleeping around there, and I don't know, there may be four there now. It's difficult to tell where they're all moving, but they're around the place. And the buffalo has still got a huge amount of meat left on it, so I don't think that they're going to go anywhere. They do seem to be highly efficient at taking hapless buffalo down, and I know that they had another buffalo kill about 3 days ago just south of us, so they're very good at doing that sort of thing. So, very nice question. I am going to move the vehicle just now, but before I do that, and it'll just make sense if I answer this question first. Erica, you're a new viewer, and it's wonderful to have you on board. Thank you for your time, and thank you especially for commenting. You're in California, where obviously the lion population isn't quite what it is here at Djuma, and you want to know if I'm scared sitting here in front of that recumbent and sleeping lion. Erica, I'm not at the moment. Andrew, are you scared?
No.
No. Erica, this is not because lions aren't ferocious predators and apex predators, but it is for two reasons. And the first reason is that because we're on a vehicle, let's go with the other reason first. All animals out here see us as the apex predator. So their natural reaction to human beings is not one of them seeing us as prey, but rather as seeing us as predators. Now that's very important to understand, especially in Africa. They've evolved with people, these animals, and so they are naturally afraid of us. It's not the same as in, say, if you were walking in the Arctic and you came across a polar bear. Polar bears didn't evolve with people, and so they don't have the same natural fear of people, and they will actively hunt human beings. Lions are not the same, except in exceptional circumstances. So that's the one thing to note. The second thing to note is that that lion is not reacting to us as though we're threatening it, because we're in a vehicle. And while I'm pretty sure that, it can see our faces and it recognizes us, as soon as we stand up and we adopt the bipedal human posture, we become a threat to the lion, and the lion would then so if I was to get out of the car, for example, right now, that lion would have a reaction. The reaction would most probably be to run away, because it sees us as the apex predator, even me at 5'8". But if it was threatened sufficiently, what it would do is turn around and run towards us and probably charge, but that wouldn't be a predatory response, it would be a threat response. And so only in very exceptional circumstances would lions attack people to try and eat them. So that's your answer, Erica. I don't feel afraid. That's not to say I don't feel a sense of respect and definite care whenever I'm viewing any of the animals out here, especially elephants and lions and that sort of thing. So I did answer a question a little while back, and our signal cut while I was in the middle of a lengthy treatise, which I think Andrew fell asleep while I was giving. Thanks, Andrew. And that question came from Diane. It's a very interesting one, from Wales. Diane, Just in case you didn't get it, I'll quickly run through it again. Your question is, if these five male lions take over territory, let's use the Nkahuma Pride as an example, and some of the females come into estrus, and one or two of the males mate, would there be some sort of recognition from the others as to whose cub was whose? The answer is I don't know, I'm not sure, but definitely there is kinship recognition. Now what that means is that there is no competition over it, and so even if one of these lions was the uncle or could be a distant cousin of the cubs that are born to a new pride, they won't show any form of aggression towards those new cubs. So any offspring from within this coalition will be safe from other members of the coalition, and that is most likely because the coalition is related to each other, and so the perpetuation of their genes is achieved even if it's done sort of vicariously through one of the other members of the coalition. But what is also interesting is that in coalitions of unrelated males, which do occur, they're not very common, but they do occur, the same is true. There isn't any sense of aggression, and I suspect that has something to do with the fact that they don't necessarily recognize their own cubs. Thanks, Diane, an excellent question. Right, so I think what we're going to do, everybody, is we're going to nip back to Quarantine, who's feeding now. Magnificent male leopard. What an extremely exciting thing it was to find him last night. And I'm so glad Scott managed to maneuver Wendy back in there this morning. I can tell you, it would have taken an enormous effort and no little skill on his part to get back in there. So we're going to go back there. What I'm going to do is head towards the hyena den just to have a quick look, because it's not far from here, and see what's going on there, and then I'm going to come back here. I don't think these lions are going to go anywhere until that buffalo is well and truly finished. So with any luck, we'll have them for the next day or two. All right, back to the leopard, and I will see you just now.
Welcome back, everyone. And unlike the sleepy lion, Quarantine is still busy feeding, and isn't it interesting how the timing was almost perfect? As they stopped feeding, he started. And he is really making some headway through this carcass now. Having said this though, I think and that's good prospects for the sunset safari. I doubt he'll be able to consume the rest of this kill during the course of the day. And who knows, there's even maybe a very slight chance that he'll be here tomorrow morning. For those of you who were watching earlier, apologies, but I would like to repeat the little story about the Inyala that he almost caught. He was lying down where we found him, about 30 meters away from the tree, and it's common for leopard to go down from the tree when they're not feeding because it's usually more comfortable there. And an Inyala had stumbled upon him, and it was just meters away when it noticed him. And wouldn't it have been interesting to see not only a duiker hoisted in this tree, but also an Inyala? I have on several occasions seen leopards with 2 kills in a similar area, not in the same tree though, in trees next to one another. Well, hello to Insomniac Josh in Connecticut. Good to have you with us. And thanks for sending through your info. He's mentioned that the coyotes in his area will feed on just about everything on a carcass, barring the stomach content and the teeth of their prey. And Josh is wondering whether or not the lions and leopards of this area will act in a similar fashion. And exactly like you said, Josh, they will also only feed on everything other than the stomach content and the teeth, really. Obviously it depends. There are some very large prey animals that are killed whose bones and skulls are too difficult to crush into and consume. But this duiker, I'm sure even the hooves will be consumed, as well as most part of the skull. Just the jaw and that bag of stomach content that has already dropped down to the ground will be left. Wow. Not sure what he's thinking now, because it looks like he is taking a short break, and then thereafter he may make sure that the kill is wedged firmly into a fork of the tree, and then probably come down and rest on the ground. Like I said, it is more comfortable. And his tail is really draped in quite a strange position at the moment, as you all saw. I hope James does get lucky at the hyena den. It's been quite some time since we've been able to show you an update on what's going on there. And I know the last time I went, it sadly was not active. I've yet to see them running around their new home. Now, I'm told large amounts of you are very concerned about the proximity of this leopard to the lion. And fear not, because he is a safe distance away. And even if they were very close by, it's very important to remember that for him to survive to this age, he's learnt how to evade lion. And even though, yes, he could get unlucky and get caught out by them, 9 times out of 10 he will be able to escape them. They're very sneaky animals, the leopards, and we must give them credit for that. Also, like I said earlier, the last time that this leopard was seen, he was on a kudu kill, and we went back one morning to see if we could find him again, and James, who was on tracking team, actually did get a view of the leopard still lurking around that area looking for any scraps that may remain. But what had happened during the course of the night is that the same lion that you're looking at now had obviously smelt that kudu kill, come in and stolen it from him. But he's still okay right here that we can see, and it'll be very often that lion and leopard will interact, and like I said, most of the time the leopards will be able to escape with relative ease. Also, I did, oh, there he's just jumped out, so maybe take a quick look at him before he disappears. Don't go too far up there, Quarantine. I wonder if his next plan would not be to head up towards the Djuma waterhole for a drink. Time will tell. Anyway, we are in the central parts of Djuma, as are the lion. They're just closer to the dam than us. They're north of the dam, we south of the dam. And I guess another male leopard that a lot of you may be concerned about is young Sindile, and there's been no clear sign of where he is this morning. I know Brent has been searching, but he is quite far off from this action, so he's also safe and there's nothing to be concerned about. Our major concern now is what we are going to do next, because it's going to be tricky for us to get a view of him up there. And what I'm inclined to do is try and actually make some space here for poor old Texan, who's just arrived on the scene at the completely wrong time. As you can all see, the leopard has disappeared, and he's spent a long time getting here. It's a tricky area to get into because there's no roads nearby and there's a lot of very thick bush. So what I'm going to do is send you back to James, and that way we can try and help Texan and his guests get a quick view of this leopard. See you later.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Djuma. Sorry, I think you had to come across to us rather quickly. We're on our way to the hyena den. Don't fear, the lions are not going anywhere. And if you have any questions about them, please feel free to just keep feeding them through. We're just going to have a quick look at the hyena den and see what's going on there, because I did see 2 hyenas coming away from the kill site this morning, or around where the kill was, so I'm just interested to know what's going on with the dynamics there. So feel free to feed through any questions about the lions if you want to, or any comments, of course. Hashtag Safari Live if you're tweeting like a chin spot Battis, or questions at wildearth.tv if you're emailing. Isn't it wonderful to see Quarantine? I had my first meeting with him yesterday. I think he's a magnificent looking creature. Lovely and relaxed, unlike his fairly ornery brother, who is a bit more aggressive and unkind. I think this is the correct entrance. Definitely isn't. Thank you for your comments. You say you love watching lions in the wild, and especially watching all Birmingham boys together. Me too, isn't it wonderful? And you want to know if I've seen any tigers in the wild. Reese, I haven't, I'm afraid. I was in Russia recently evaluating a tiger project on the Siberian or Amur tiger, but unfortunately I didn't manage to see any tigers there. I am hoping against hope that one day I will be able to, though, and perhaps India is the best route to go there. So the hyena den, you can see that green tree there. That's a Scotia brachypatella, or weeping boerbean, and it's sitting on a termite mound, and just beneath it is the hole in which the little hyena has been finding refuge. I've never entered it from this particular part, so I'm not really sure that it is accessible from here. Certainly there is going to be some crunching, so don't spill your drink. I don't see any activity there now. Sorry about that, Andrew. No. This really is not ideal. So I will, once we've come to a halt, I'll tell you how close we are. Sorry, Andrew, just watch out this Flugia verosa bush. I don't think this is a good idea. I think poor old Giga is not going to get round that way. Okay, so we're going to go in from the other side. That Flugia verosa, by the way, whiteberry bush, is starting to show signs of spring, which is quite exciting. Now we are, as the crow flies, probably about 400 meters from the lions. So pretty close by, not far away. And these hyenas would unquestionably have heard the kill. Are we all right there, Andrew? Or is this a bad idea? So you mean I'm stuck forever? We may be stuck forever. And that's why I've decided to come through here, just to see what's going on, because the hyenas would definitely have heard the kill going on earlier today. Right. Gosh, there is a huge, astonishing number of twigs and branches here, and that's because the elephants have been in here destroying the bush. Not too hard to walk through, but to maneuver a little vehicle through, not easy. There. I don't think the hyenas are here. We'll just do a little turn around the other side. There's a francolin on top there. You see that, Andrew? Let me go back a bit, sorry. You see there? Is this okay?
Yeah.
So, I'm afraid nothing going on here at the hyena den, but there is a francolin that is sitting there, perched rather precariously, perhaps ignorantly of what exactly it is on top of. Now, we're sitting here at a hyena den, where there are no hyenas, of course. I suspect the little one is probably inside that hole, having a bit of a snooze. Can you see the hole, Andrew, or shall I go back a bit?
Can't see the hole.
Okay, I'll go forward a bit. And Steve, in Texas, while we're sitting with the hyenas, you want to know, would those lions, despite the fact that they are so full, would they still try and defend the kill? And the answer is absolutely. I think if anything were to try and take the kill, be it a vulture, a hyena, a leopard, or a human being, there would be quite a violent reaction from the lions. They look recumbent and unable to move almost. Let's show the hole there, Andrew, and then we'll press on from here. They look like they couldn't possibly move, so full as they are. I mean, they really do look very fat, but you'd be astonished at how quickly they'll get up and move should the need arise. Remember, no animal out here can afford ever to be immobile, because there is always the threat. And then, I mean, we're sitting looking at this termite mound seemingly empty, and an interesting question from Lisa about whether or not the hyenas would move the cub from here because of the presence of the lions. Lisa, I don't think so. You know, there are lions around these cubs all the time, or around the dens, and they're specially adapted to dig into places where no lion would be able to get. So I don't think that they would move unless there was an exceptional amount of pressure from lions in this area. You know, there are lions coming through here all the time. We just had a dearth in the last 7 days or so, but they're coming through here. The other den was extremely obvious. We've seen leopard and lion tracks going past it. So no, they won't move it in relation to the Birmingham boys. Now, it would seem that the signal is back on Wendy. Quarantine is in a, I think, functional state, and if he isn't, then Scott will tell you about it. So while I try and extricate myself from the windy, impenetrable hyena den forest, we are going to head back to the lions. You're going to go back to Scott, and I'll see you just a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone, and I got a little bit lost, to be honest, and that's why we're turning around quickly, but we are on our way to try and get you another view of quarantine. We moved out of the riverbed so that we could make sure our friend Texan, one of the Djuma guides, had an opportunity to squeeze his guests in and have a view, and I know he certainly would have done exactly the same thing had it been us arriving in that unfortunate scenario. As he managed to get into the right area, the leopard came down the tree and made it a little bit more tricky for him to see. But from this road that we're going down now, Twin Dams Road, which if we turned right now would take us up to the Djuma Dam, and it's not far from here, maybe a quarter of a mile. And I just would like to tell you that because you'll have a good idea of how close we are exactly. He's just down about 100 meters or so on our left-hand side. And as I did mention earlier, there's quite a strong chance that he could go for a drink during the course of the day at the Djuma waterhole. So whoever the Zoomy is and whoever's watching, keep your eyes peeled. Even though the Birmingham Coalition are nearby, I'm guessing their water source is going to be the small little waterhole in front of the Gallagher camp, where we often see elephants drinking. So I don't think they will entertain you at the dam between drives. And as I said before you got to the hyena den with James, I really was hoping that you would get a glimpse of them. It's been quite some time now, but their new den site, as you all well aware, is quite difficult to access. And who knows, maybe like James says, the clan will feel the need to move the cub from that area now that the lions are camped out so close by. But I must say, on the same note, that I have seen tracks of lion going into den sites, and the adults will know that full well that those lions would have come there, but they don't move their cubs, so it's not something that will always happen. Ooh, bit of a tricky spot. I'm just going to have to reverse a tiny bit to get Ryan a gap. Probably as good as it's gonna get. Hello, boy. Good to see you back on comfortable ground again, as you didn't seem like you had the easiest meal in terms of comfort, but now you can relax again. Now, a question that I'm sure a lot of you are interested in getting to the bottom of is how much Djuma and quarantine have grown. I know Jennifer, all the way in Missouri, has been watching the show for many months now, and she remembers back in February and March when we almost used to see this leopard and his brother daily. They were the main source of leopard sightings back then. And isn't it interesting how it changes, Jennifer? Now, I'm not sure how much he would have grown. It's difficult to say, but I think he is definitely growing. Well, he has to be. He's still going to grow considerably larger than what he is. But very difficult for me to answer that question. In terms of weight, maybe he's put on an extra 5 or so kilograms, 10 pounds in the last 6 months. And it'll be over the next 2 years that he continues to grow. So even though he's approaching 3 years of age, he will continue to get bigger for the next 2 years, but growth will certainly slow down, and the fastest growth I've recognized and remembered in leopards is within their first 2 years, and thereafter it starts tapering off. But it is important to remember that his head and body and shoulders are going to continue growing. He's nowhere near fully grown, even though he is independent. A very tricky thing with leopards and lions and all animals, I guess, is that the weights of them will vary hugely depending on the area, and male leopards can vary from anywhere from 60 kilograms, very light, to about 100 kilograms. So I think we have had the majority of the fun that was going to be had with this male leopard this morning, and as you can see, he's fast asleep now, just finished consuming a healthy portion of that duiker. So we're going to carry on and see if we can find you any more animals to try and put the cherry on the top of what's been already an incredible sunrise safari. And credit must go to James, because if it wasn't for him hearing those lions early hours of this morning, I'm sure we would have got your updates, and those are always useful. But the great thing about James hearing is that he got a very good idea as to where exactly the action went down, and it's very difficult for you guys to pick up where the audio is coming off Djuma waterhole cam. And who knows, maybe in the coming months it'll be the Birmingham Coalition who managed to take down a buffalo on a live drive. It did happen in November last year, interestingly enough. They were feeding on a buffalo at the time that another breeding herd of buffalo came in to the area feeding, not knowing that those lions were nearby with another buffalo that they had killed the night before. And they got up, left the buffalo that they were feeding on, and managed to take down another buffalo. So a good example of how opportunistic predators can be, and how they will take any opportunities that are given to them. Speaking of buffalo, it looks like we found the large bachelor herd that moves around Djuma. There's usually about 30 to 40 of them in this herd, and maybe we could have a moment or two in silence. They are incredibly wonderful animals, and sadly there's one less on Djuma, but it is part of the natural cycle. But I think it is important to remember that we're not celebrating the death of any one animal for the benefits of another, but it is necessary. So let's just take a moment to enjoy watching these guys. What I would love is if we can definitely confirm that the old and weak buffalo that was seen at the Djuma waterhole a couple of days ago was in fact the one that the Birmingham boys got a hold of. I know that is the speculation at this stage, Great. Well, we're gonna send you across to James now, and he's ready and waiting for you with the Birmingham boys.
Hello everybody, welcome back to this sighting of the magnificent Birmingham clearly male lions. Thank you for that, Andrew. We've got 3 of them here lying in a little carpet, and the other one, the scar-faced male, is just to the other side, and then the buffalo is sort of in between them, starting to smell very nicely ripe as the African sun starts to heat up the innards that remain. I have not seen the 5th one. I don't know that he's come back across the road unless he's actually at the carcass now, which is possible. We haven't had a look. I just came in here to try and see these 3. But they are all 5 around. So in case you've just joined us, 5 male lions killed a buffalo this morning, and we heard it bellowing in horrible distress at 4:30 this morning. It woke me. And also, we think that there may have been some hyenas involved because they were calling quite loudly. And then we did see 2 of them go off or sort of towards quarantine clearings while we were looking for the lions. So quite interesting that. And whether or not those hyenas had anything to do with attracting the lions to the buffalo, I'm not really sure. Sorry, I was just set upon there by a fly. Now the flies, we had a lovely question earlier about why there were no flies on the buffalo, simply because it hadn't heated up enough yet. The flies are going to descend onto that carcass as the day progresses, and there will be a great proliferation of them. That was from Gary. Thanks, Gary. You can see that panting, and that's not because it's hot yet. It's still probably maybe 21 degrees in the shade, so it's pretty cool. That's probably about 60, almost 70 degrees Fahrenheit. And that panting is simply a function of the fact that the belly is so full. Full now, they will keep eating that buffalo until it's finished, unless, you know, they're called away to sort of defend territory or set up territory, as they're doing at the moment. So a buffalo like this will probably last them 2 days or so, maybe a bit longer. But then how long will it sustain them? And that's your question, Jennifer. How long will it sustain them? They could easily go 7 days without eating again, quite easily. And they'll start to look a bit skinny after that length of time, and they seem to be pretty efficient hunters, so they probably won't go that length of time without eating again, but they could easily sustain themselves for 7 days, and if they absolutely had to, probably even longer than that. And we had a lot of questions about the cleaning earlier, and whether they clean themselves and how they get that blood off them. Well, there is the example of what they do. That lion was just cleaning himself, licking his paw, just like your house cat would, and then wiping his face with his paw. And his paw, which, in case you're wondering, is roughly the size of a dinner plate. I mean, it is not a small appendage to his leg. These are big animals. Watching the tongue licking there, very rough, obviously, like sort of steel wool. There's another one coming through through here, Andrew. I don't know if you can see it. Zai, you'd like to know how long a lion's tongue is. Zai, I've got absolutely no idea. I could try and sort of guess for you. If you look at my hands, a lion's tongue from tip to base is probably about that long, I guess. Quite long, really. Hey, Andrew? Quite a long tongue. You can just start to feel that incredible intensity that we had this morning, where there was roaring, there was bellowing of buffalo, the hyena were shouting, and as we came live, there were birds starting to call and Franklin yelling, and Andrew sneezing continuously, and bless you, Andrew. Now that intensity is waned completely. It's got quite warm quite quickly. The lions are now fast asleep, not feeding anymore. And there's a general sense of that mid-morning lull that overcomes the low veld, especially as we go into September and October, which are normally very hot months with not much in the way of rain. Here comes another lion. There he is, Andrew. You got him.
Yeah.
So there's an interesting discussion going on about their size. Suzanne, you say, wow, because how big will their ultimate mass be? And because they're not at ultimate mass yet. They will only reach that when they're about 6 to 8 years old. And Christy, you say that they already look very big. Now, this is partly true. Well, it's not actually. I'm just going to give you a few comparisons, and then I'm going to talk you through the human psychology behind this. It's quite interesting. And I've done it before, but it should be reiterated while we're looking at these male lions, or a bush, as Andrew has decided to show us. Thank you, Andrew. The interesting thing is that, first of all, they're not unusually large for their age at all. They're in fact they're pretty average sized. That's not to say they're not big, but they are average sized for lions. Junior, I was looking at the other day, and I think he's actually carrying a bit more mass than some of these guys. I think he is a little bit taller, and I think he's a little bit bulkier too. Now, the Matimbas are definitely bigger than these lions, and that's simply because they are older. These lions will get bigger, and they'll get older, they'll fill out, they'll get a little bit taller, and of course, the bigger the mane on a lion, the bigger it tends to look. Now, so that's the sort of ultimate size that they are. Now, what's really interesting to me, and I've heard this 100 times, the first time anyone sees a male lion, their first reaction is to say, wow, that lion is so, Andrew?
Big.
So big. Everyone does it. I did it. And I bet Andrew's first reaction when he saw a lion was, gee, that's a big animal. It is a big animal. But in relation to each other, they're not that much bigger than, well, they're the same size as other lions. In fact, they might even be slightly smaller. But they're about average size. The same thing happens when people see a male leopard. They say, wow, he's big. When they have no basis of saying that, they have no way to compare the sizes. And it's a typically human phenomenon. We all do it, and I don't really know why. I think it's because we associate sort of heroism and the kind of warrior archetype with size. And we want these lions to, we put on them our kind of human emotion of the heroic warrior. It's a big male lion. We've obviously all been imbued with the culture of the Lion King. And I mean, the Lion King was came from our original impressions of lions as these noble big beasts. And so that's basically where this comes from, I think. They're not unusually large, like I say. Then when we look at females, always, and it's true so much of the time, but when you look at a female leopard, Andrew, what's the first reaction there? She's so? No. She's so beautiful.
Beautiful, yes.
Always, she's so beautiful. Same with lions, same with at least with lionesses. And we don't tend to judge the females on their size, we tend to judge them on their looks, and the males we judge on their size. And I think it's a very interesting human phenomenon, that. Yeah. So thank you for those questions, Christy. Very interesting. All right, just as we've got a few more minutes left, Scott just had a wonderful morning. We're just going to hand you back to him quickly. He's got some elephants, which is wonderful this time of the day, and we'll see you just now.
Welcome back, everyone, and we're just looping ahead quickly to get you a good view of some elephant that we found right at the end. So we did manage to get the cherry on the top, and our decision to leave quarantine has paid off. Just going to stop here. Got a few youngsters on their way right past us. Good morning. This one's passed in front of us. The other one, a slightly larger bull, moved off behind the vehicle, and I can see a cow and a calf which should just be coming into your frame shortly. So a breeding herd of elephants with all different shapes and sizes. They're quite spread out, and we actually followed one young bull alone for quite some time before he led us to the rest of the herd. And aren't we all so lucky to have been treated to an incredible morning? Oh, what I just noticed is that it looks like the female that's missing the end of her trunk. That is the one that you can see disappearing off there, and a lot of you will know her. And it really is interesting how her and her two offspring of different ages quite often move alone, just the three of them, but will join up with other herds from time to time. And I'm guessing that's the three of them there, mother and two different offspring. Lots of fork-tailed drongos flying around them, catching the insects that the elephants chase up, which you would have got a glimpse of. I think three of them were flying in and around that elephant there. Great, well, what a morning it's been. Sadly, it has drawn to a close, so it's time for me to say goodbye. And thank you for following and sending all your questions. I'm sure you've enjoyed the safari. How could you have not? It's been action-packed and so good to have the Birmingham Coalition back on the property. It's been quite some time that we managed to show you some lion, and who better than those beautiful big males. Thanks, Brian, for your camera work, and to Nikki and Tara, who are in the final control room. It's been a great drive, and we're going to send you back to James now for the last few minutes. It'll be Brent and myself out this afternoon.
Hello everybody, welcome back. The lions have just lain down, but I got to tell you, Andrew and my heart rates are now sitting a little bit above normal because I don't know what it was, a fly or a bird or something made them sit up with such speed. And we had a question earlier about how are they able to sort of function when they're so full and fat and seemingly recumbent. Well, the reaction speed is still quite astonishingly frightening. So they're absolutely able to react at a speed that would certainly make your toes curl and make your heart speed with an incredible pace. What a wonderful drive we've had. An incredible morning started, waking me up with bleary-eyed, with buffalo bellowing. That buffalo, unfortunately, has now met its end. Its contribution to the world of the living is now at an end. And it is now contributing, of course, to the lives of these wonderful 5 Birmingham male lions who are now in the flush of youth and about to take over this territory. Thank you, Andrew, on camera today. I know that you sneezed excessively, but thank you very much for your efforts. A big thank you to Scott and a big well done for finding quarantine again, and Brian on the other vehicle, and of course a big thanks to Nikki and Tara, the old hands in the directing seats in final control today. Naturally, the most important contributors to this, as always, have been you. There have been some wonderful questions, some wonderful comments, and I thank you for them. We're just going to have a last look at these Birmingham lions before we leave you. This afternoon, I think it will be Scott and Brent on drive, so we'll come and check how the lions are doing, but I don't think they're going to go anywhere soon. So wherever you are on our blue planet, I hope you have a wonderful evening, morning, afternoon, whatever it happens to be. Keep safe, and we'll see you later this afternoon.